Let's continue this episode with those line combinations in the bottom nine. Here's what Mike Sullivan put together yesterday during Penguins practice, and then we'll talk about what we would do on those bottom nine. The second line yesterday in practice was Drew O'Connor, Lars Eller, and Cody Glass. Third line was Michael Bunting, Noel Chari, and Jesse Puljujärvi. And the fourth line was Kevin Hayes, Blake Lizotte, and Anthony Beauvillier. Let's go line by line here and get our line combinations in. Horwat, let's start with the second line. What would you put together with a second line if it is Malkin, Crosby, Raquel as your top line?
It's extremely tough. I think just because I really liked what I saw last year, I'm already making a pretty decent change, but I'm putting Valtteri Puustinen back in this lineup. And I would think I would probably roll with an Eller line of centering O'Connor and Puustinen. I mean, Puustinen hasn't played much this year, but he's also already scored. I think you give him a little bit more of a consistent stretch in the lineup, and I liked what I saw from him last year. The Penguins obviously think highly of him, and I personally, at least, want to see what he can do in the NHL on a full-time basis, kind of like what he had last year, but legitimately sustained. And this seems like a good opportunity to put him in the lineup, and I know someone will have to come out, and we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. I like the O'Connor-Eller thing. I think all of us agree that that's probably your best options at second center and second left wing right now. But instead of Puustinen, I'm putting Jesse Puljujärvi there on that second line. I think Puljujärvi and O'Connor as a combination on the forecheck could create some havoc in that offensive zone, and I think it could create some turnovers and opportunities for a second line. I like Eller being the setup man for both. He's also the defensive conscious of a line that has a lot of defensive conscientiousness on it, right? Drew O'Connor's a penalty killer for the Penguins. Jesse Puljujärvi is certainly able to hold his own in the defensive end of the ice, and I think that has to be part of the equation here whenever you're putting together these lines, especially with how bad the team defense has been to this point in the season. So I like O'Connor. I like Eller. I agree with you on those, but I'm putting Jesse Puljujärvi there simply because, and I'll get to this more when I talk about the line that he's actually on, simply because I think Puustinen kind of fades into the background a little bit too much. And part of that is going to be, he's not quite to that level yet where he can continue to stay relevant through an entire game, continue to make good plays through an entire game. And he certainly doesn't have the physicality to be present like a guy like a Blake Lizotte or a Noel Chari can during games, or even a guy like Michael Bunting when nothing's working. If he has his physicality, he's evident. You can see him on the ice. That doesn't happen with Valtteri Puustinen. So I think you need to put him with players that kind of fit that mold a little bit more to help keep him engaged, help keep him kind of in the action a little bit more. Puljujärvi, I don't think you need anything like that. Puljujärvi brings that physicality with him. He's had a good skating stride this year. He did fade to the background after a hot start, but I think he needs to be afforded the opportunity to kind of bounce back up, get back up the other hill, out the other side of this valley that he's currently in. And I think he can really do it if you put him on that second line. And obviously, his one goal this year against the Buffalo Sabres, you saw that he has the talent to be a guy that can finish in a top six role. So even though this isn't really a top six, it's a top line, bottom line situation, I like Puljujärvi on that second line.
And I don't hate that. I don't hate Puljujärvi getting more opportunity. He's another guy that I want to see in the lineup, period. I get there's a lot of names stacked up in the depth chart and forcing a ton of decision making. But I just feel the decision should be Puustinen and Puljujärvi at consistently in the NHL lineup, wherever they fall, just as long as they're playing and getting reasonable ice time for, at least for Puljujärvi, what he deserves, and for Puustinen, what he can earn.
Yeah, now speaking of Puustinen, let's just go to the third line now, because that's where I have him. I have him at third line right wing next to Cody Glass and Michael Bunting. I think if you put that third line out there, again, how good is it defensively? That depends. Cody Glass has been good in both ends this year. Cody Glass has been really good, really everywhere this year. We'll talk about him in the third segment because he hasn't scored a goal. Neither has Michael Bunting. But I think this is a line that I put out there, and I expect to be able to get results. I mean, Michael Bunting is going to bring a little bit of havoc, and I think that could open up some space for Valtteri Puustinen. And like I mentioned when talking about the last line, Puustinen just fades into the background too much. He won't if he's with Cody Glass and Michael Bunting, two guys that, well, Bunting has faded to the back, and that's when you know he's not playing his game. But recently, I mean, 5 shots on goal in Thursday's game against the Ducks. 2 shots on goal, but was very physical, and he's starting to play that antagonistic style, which means he's getting back to his game. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of that. I think him and Glass are a good pairing, and I think Puustinen could be a good third piece there. If Glass can start setting him up, I think that could be a third line that starts to create a little bit more offensively for you in the bottom 6.
And I'm with you on, Glass centering Bunting, but then, obviously I would just keep Puljujarvi there. I think that was clear whenever I had Puustinen there, and it's essentially the same things you said, just swapping the fins on the right wing.
Yeah. Now, I think that means our fourth line is probably going to be the same, and we're probably going to have the same healthy scratch. Beauvillier is not in my lineup. Is he in yours?
Nope.
No. Okay, so why do you have Beauvillier taken out of yours?
Because I want Puustinen in the lineup, and it's tough to fill. Because I want Puustinen and Puljujarvi in this lineup, but it is tough to sort of shoehorn all these names in, and someone just needs to be the odd man out. And so far this year, aside from spurts of something, the odd man out has appeared to be Anthony Beauvillier, and from pretty much from this moment he was signed, I think a lot of people were writing him off right away. And unlike Geno Smith, he wrote back. Anthony Beauvillier has not performed up to expectations completely, and there's still a chance he can earn his way back into the lineup for sure. It might just take some work.
Yeah, when I look at Beauvillier's game so far this season, it reads to me, and again, a lot of people made this comparison preseason, it reads to me Carl Hagelin, but less impactful. So whenever I look at that, and I too have Puustinen in over him, I have Puljujarvi in it over him, and there's really no argument to be made with Hayes, Lizotte, and Achari, who is my fourth line, and I'm presuming your fourth line as well. Yeah. There's no argument to be had. I mean, those guys kill penalties. Beauvillier can, but at the same time, he doesn't bring the physicality that Achari brings. He doesn't bring the shot blocking that Achari brings. He doesn't bring that veteran poise that Kevin Hayes has shown, even whenever he's gone on these spurts where he hasn't been able to create much offensively. He still shows when he has the puck on his stick that he's going to make the right decision 9 times out of 10. And Blake Lizotte, I think we all knew as soon as he got back into the lineup, coming back from that concussion, he wasn't getting taken out, right? 2 games played. Now he has that empty net goal. I think he is starting to build a little bit more. It's going to take him some time because he missed so much time due to a concussion. He's going to build and continue to get better. But because of that, I haven't been impressed with Beauvillier. I don't think this is a guy that, you have to bend over backwards to keep in the lineup, although it seems like that might be the case with Sullivan.
Yeah, it just hasn't been impressive. And when there are so many cooks in the kitchen, someone's got to be removed. It won't be easy. And not only are there so many cooks in the kitchen, we might see the season debut of Matt Nieto soon. So let's just throw another wrench into this just to make things even more difficult. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long he stays in the lineup, but, coming back from health after been a year? Yeah, it's been a year. You expect the Penguins to, not necessarily do the right thing by him by getting him into the lineup, but seeing what they have in him after a year off and seeing if maybe there's some jump in his game and he can provide something new to the bottom 6, something fresh that, we kind of know what we have in him after what he did last year. It's just a new year, a bit of a new look. Maybe something changes. Who knows? But, the Penguins are going to put him in the lineup and we'll see how long he's there for, essentially.
Yeah, the last time Matt Nieto suited up for a game was November 30th of 2023, a game in which the Penguins defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning and Tristan Jarry scored a goalie goal. Yeah. So that is the last we've seen of Matt Nieto. He is, as you kind of alluded to, on the road trip with the Penguins, so his return could be coming soon. Who else is on the road trip? That's Brian Rust trying to come back from a lower body injury, and that is a player that, without a doubt, when he is healthy, he will be in this lineup. So the question becomes, Horwat, to close out this segment, where does Brian Rust fit when he returns? Do you put him on that top line? Like you kind of said you might. Is that where you put him? And how does that shake out the rest of the lineup once you do?
The more I think about it, the more I probably would put Rust on the second line. But when he does return, I wouldn't be shocked to... Here's the thing. I would say if he returns soonish, maybe you give him that shot of Crosby, Malkin, Rust on the first line. You go Raquel on the second and just keep everything sort of the same. Plunk Raquel down a line. However, I would mostly expect when Rust returns the lineup to kind of go back to normal. like Malkin would get sent to the second. Maybe that's where Rust joins them.
Mm-hmm.
And everything filters out to its normal look before. Because again, Malkin next to Crosby feels and felt a bit like an experiment for now.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's breeded some success, but I'd say for now it's the experiment. And then if the success doesn't follow when Rust returns, go back to it and again just sort of reshuffle the lines from there. That's just how I think I'd put it. Like once Rust returns, the likely option is the lines just go back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it doesn't work, let's have some fun again.
Yeah, I think that for right now, Mike Sullivan is pretty married to this idea of, hey, we're going to keep Malkin and Crosby together until it stops working, or until the bottom nine is just so bad that we can't continue to have nobody as a second line. I mean, not nobody, but Lars Eller we were talking about Lars Eller fitting more as a fourth line center this offseason. Right now, he's been the second line center for the last, 3 games, and that's not due to injury. So if it gets to the point where you're saying, okay, we need to spread the scoring out like desperately again, I think they switched that. But as of right now, it's been working. So I'm going to go with the fact that it's been working. And if Brian Rust returns, say probably not tonight, but say, later in this road trip, I just plop him on that second line right wing and I run O'Connor, Eller, and Rust. And I think that probably does a good bit for that line when it comes to creating offense. And certainly that line will then be one of probably your better shutdown lines as well, with all 3 of them being, pretty good penalty killers at the NHL level. And then Puljujarvi gets bumped off that line. I think it's just whoever's playing better between him and Puustinen. I would lean towards, yes, Puljujarvi. I think right now he just brings a little bit more to the table than Valtteri Puustinen can. But again, it's a tough decision because then once Nieto comes back, then what do you do, right? Maybe you take out Puustinen and you move Glass over to the wing. There's a lot of moving and shaking that can happen if both Rust and Nieto become healthy on this road trip. And it's gonna cost something. And let's all forget, Mike Sullivan continues to put Anthony Beauvillier in the lineup, which is a decision that is continuing to get more and more questionable as time goes on. But that's our bottom 9. That's how we would construct it. Let us know in the comment section how you would construct the bottom 9. That is if they continue to keep Malkin, Crosby, Rakell on that top unit. Here's what Mike Sullivan ran yesterday in practice and what you can expect likely to happen later tonight against the New York Islanders. Drew O'Connor, Lars Eller, and Cody Glass is your second line. Bunting, Achari, and Puljujarvi as your third. And then Hayes, Lizotte, and Anthony Beauvillier as your fourth line. There were no changes to the blue line, mind you, and you can expect probably another opportunity for Alex Nedeljkovic, who has been the hot hand for the Penguins over the past 2 games.